Howdy, howdy, howdy. Another Thursday night. Let's see, we got Mr. John, Ari, Greg over in the chat right now. See, we got Jason and Josh and Tim. Y'all doing alright?
Yep, I am.
Looks like Jim's doing a little scenery work there. He's got his mic muted right now because he's making noise.
Hey.
Wait, Josh is laid back. I'd say looks like he's about ready to launch himself.
No, I've just been editing it. But I do want to talk about one thing.
Yeah, I figured you did. You always do.
Okay. Sorry, I shared?
Huh?
Sorry, I already got it up then. You see what I just shared?
Yeah.
Hey, because I just wanted to talk about this. Also, it's safety week, rail safety week, this week. So, please, here's something you don't want to do. Don't play on the train tracks. Don't walk on the train tracks. Don't trespass on rail yards. You'll be squished like a pancake, killed, anything else. Maybe most lucky, probably lose a couple of legs. But please don't do that. It takes 1 mile. It takes 1 mile for a train to stop, and normally, and it will kill you. And we can't do anything. About it. It pretty much just hold on, let the brakes go, and just think. And there's a lot of people suicide of that too. But this is a person this past weekend, right on it was walking down the track with 765 backing up right in front of it. But yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Just because it's Rail Safety Week, I thought I'd come on here and just say, yeah. He's also flying a drone and looking down, like an iPad. So that's also not good. Really easy a trip. But thanks, Johnny, for me to.
Yeah, well, that's fine. You said it's Rail Safety Week. Okay, that's good. Let's go ahead and let everybody know that this is the last week of this month. We start a new month on Monday. Oh, let's see here. So, what we got lined up so far in October is October the 9th. It'll be the Fine Scale Show. October 17th will be Joe's Train Room. Another installment of Joe and Bill Bronick, the track planner. But yeah, we do have some other shows that they're kind of, I guess, what you call one-offs. Barry's looking to do a show in October. For those that don't know, he and his buddy Mike D, Miles and Fran retired doing clinics at the Amherst show, so Mike and Barry are going to take that over, and they're working right now to get set up for the upcoming Amherst show in January. So they're probably going to come in and do a show, talk about that. Got a couple other people there in communication right now. Don't know exactly what, but they have said that they wanted to see about doing a show too this in October. So when we get more information, we will pass it on. Let you know. But that's what I got so far on the schedule. So, alrighty. Anybody got any favorite hobby shops, online, offline, inline, they like to go to? Small manufacturers like Imagine That Laser Art or somebody like that. Central Jersey.
Because I've had two of my favorite hobby shops, and I'm not really being in a railroad anymore. I actually visit the photography shop more than I do the railroad shop anymore, the hobby shop. But because the two good ones I have closed, my third good one would probably be Krause's. Krause's in the Krause's over in North Lima, right across from Youngstown in Southeastern Rail Yard, and they actually do a Christmas train there too every year. It's a pretty cool hobby shop because part of it's a hardware shop, but the railroad, a lot of the railroad stuff is actually in a box car. You walk through box cars to look at stuff. It's a pretty cool hobby shop.
And
I hear what was ABC Hobby Craft.
Yeah. How you doing, Andrew?
Good. How about you, Johnny?
Yeah, not too bad. Didn't you do a show last weekend? Were you bridge?
Yeah, I took it to South Bend, Indiana.
How'd that go?
Small show. That was our NMRA regional conference. So I was half the Fremont modules.
Yeah.
I was a switching loop for somebody else's module. Yeah.
Andy, you take that bridge of yours anywhere, you're half the modules, aren't you?
Well, except for the national show. Yeah, that was
okay. Well, there you're probably a third.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a small deal. That was last minute. I had a feeling they might have been in a pinch for something.
Josh, I need you to mute your mic. I'm getting a little feedback from you.
Sorry, I forgot.
Let's see. Glenn said he only had one hobby shop in Houston. Andy said he likes Caboose. That's the Mecca. And he's also an internet age modeler, so he shops online. I don't know if you caught it, Andrew, but I'd asked who everybody wants to shop with, online, offline, inline. You know, small shops, you know, like Imagine That Laser Art, the Carolina Works, I think it's another one, you know, either manufacturers or hobby shops.
Well, I'm kind of considering right now, believe it or not, maybe another bridge.
Yeah.
Just a small one. Actually, I think I just kind of calculated it'd be actually longer than that module would be longer than the Nicholson viaduct. But I was looking for either a bascule bridge or a swing bridge, and I found the swing bridge in Port Madison, Iowa. And I looked at that and I says, "Ooh, that sounds interesting." When I started looking at it, because it's a double deck bridge. You got vehicle traffic on top, and you got the rail traffic beneath it.
Yeah, I believe the Bob went on that bridge when he came up to see Jim.
Yeah. But it's interesting because your approaches either side of the Mississippi for your vehicle traffic are on, looks like just girder bridges, and it kind of I haven't figured out the angle yet, but it just kind of rises, and then just before you get into the truss bridges, it kind of swings into in between. So I've been looking at it right now and trying to figure out how tall I got to make it. It's hard to find any dimensions, so I'm going to try to see if I can pull dimensions off of Google Maps, taking the scale distance.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's double track main line below. It's interesting because it was originally Santa Fe. It's now BNSF. There's videos showing BNSF, Union Pacific, and Amtrak running across it. Amtrak has got a stop in Fort Madison, and it looks like that's a crew change point also. So this could be interesting. But I can't remember. It worked out to, what was it, 30... If I was to do the entire bridge, about 34 feet. But a lot of that's water. So the scenery is nothing spectacular, but the bridge, I think, would be
yeah. Catch up chat here. Eric said Midwest Mall Railroad was his, and let me get back over here because it scrolled up on me. Pfeiffer Hobby. Okay, he lives right there. Nathan. Hey, Nathan, how you doing? He said he's got a hobby shop, but it's now 20% hobby shop, 80% health food store, and that 20% is getting smaller every time he goes. John D. He said he shops online at many different shops. He said the locals, Ventura Hobbies. Hey, Ron in Australia, how you doing? Yeah, okay, Andy, thank you. Andy's starting up something in the chat here. He said Johnny's shop is a good one in the Atlanta greater area. Yeah, he said Johnny's, but we still waiting for Johnny to take over that one. Yeah, you're going to be waiting a long time for that because he's got a big price tag on it, I'm sure. So that's just a hobby shop I go to, hang out on Wednesdays sometimes. It's called Buford, or Traymaster Hobbies there in Buford.
Well, I'll answer the question. Well, I got one Pacific is train hobby shop, and that's Castle Trains. It's Castle Trains and Treasures, I think that's what it's called. But that I've been doing business with them for the last 15 years probably. And they've been doing good with me. I was talking with them this week, trying to find out when my Athearn locomotives will be coming in. And they said they're on order. It's just they haven't came in yet.
Yeah. Yeah, Ron down in Australia. He said Andy will buy the hobby shop. I guess I'll run it. Michael said he does a lot of online, like Cream City Hobbies in Wisconsin. I have to go check that one out. He says local CP trains in Crown Point, Indiana.
Like I said, I deal with ABC Hobbycraft here in Evansville, Indiana, and we got Hobbytown, USA. They don't carry a whole lot of train stuff, but
a lot of RC.
Yeah. And they're actually carrying Radio Shack items now.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Resistors, LEDs, stuff like that.
I have like Hobby Lobby, and there's what is it called? Falcon Hobbies now. It's saying it's the largest hobby store south of Chicago or something like that.
Yeah.
And it does a lot more with RCs and RC cars. They got RC tracks out there, off-road track, and they also have a drone course out there now.
Huh.
But,
yeah, we got a Hobby Lobby, Michael's, and Joanne Fabrics, which carries some stuff, but most of what they carry, Hobby Lobby carries some actual train stuff, where Michael's and Joanne carry, general hobby items.
Yeah.
Yeah, Glenn said he gets some from Hobby Link. Randy's Rock and Roll Railroad, how you doing? He said the whistle stop in Oklahoma.
We used to have a hobby town. I think it was Hobby Town around here too. It was on.
Yeah.
Oh, there was a like in Birmingham. I forget what hobby shop I used to go to when I went to Birmingham, Alabama. But I think they did more on boats and stuff, or different remote control stuff. Because remember their weather is a lot nicer, more sunny and warmer during this. They don't have a hard winter like us here, so more people are doing stuff more outdoors. I'm thinking probably they had a lot more RC stuff. Yeah.
Glenn
Where here is more the trains and stuff and the hobby shops.
Yeah, Glenn said train shows are great when Spring Creek is there.
Biggest thing I was finding lately is there's not much I'm looking for in the hobby shops. I bought a lot of my stuff back in the early to mid '90s. I don't know if there's anything I'm going to look for. I almost have to buy it online because not all the hobby shops are going to carry it.
That's my problem. And I guess, by the way, that's why. There's a lot of reasons why I'm an internet age modeler. One, I don't see a lot of deals of any kind of shops that are lost, and I understand that. I run a business. I have a particular shop. I know the cost associated with that. And when you go to Steve Atwell or any of the, just deal with a single guy who's running the business the way he is on the internet, his ability to compete is unparalleled. And then supply's the big problem. So the rise in the RPM shows, and that's where they say the growth in the hobby is. They talk about NMRA shows smaller, but RPM meets are going up massively. The St. Louis RPM show was nearly twice the size this year as it was 2 years before, supposedly. It nearly doubled in maybe 3 years in size. A lot of the growth is in that part of the hobby, in the RPM. And those guys are looking for the high-quality stuff. And look at the manufacturers. Caltrans, Exactran, Tape. The growth in the hobby is in that high-fidelity and prototype accuracy space where people are buying center flow hoppers that are appropriate for the chassis. They have the specific brake rigging that the chassis would have used in '84 or whatever.
When I got into the hobby way back when, it didn't really matter. There were very few people that looked and said, when was the new build date on it? Now you go and you try to sell something online, and everybody says, what's the new build date on it?
Right.
And people are asking us, has it got plastic wheels or they got metal wheels? 80 couplers, or what do they got for couplers?
Yeah, used to people went into so I worked at a hobby shop all through high school from before I was 16 till after I was 18, or I was almost 18, and a few months off work for NS before I went to the military. But I was there for just under 3 years. And built up a doggone good collection of stuff at the time because getting stuff at cost, stuff was a lot cheaper. But you could buy Atherd or Roundhouse cars or Acura cars at $2.50, $2.25, $2.50 a piece at cost, and even the retail price on it was $4. Now KD's and metal will set. That's why it doesn't bother me now with my rolling stock. Every piece of rolling stock that I buy gets couplers and wheels because I used P87 or Proto 87 wheels and Surgeon couplers. So I have to do that anyway. But I'm in the same boat. I'm not. People used to come in the hobby shop and they walk around and they would look for things they liked and they'd buy a couple of those things. Most of the people these days seem to be, at least in all the communities online and in the shopping and such, just as you say, the guys are looking for something specific. In my case, I'm looking for about 6 different locomotives or some quantity of those, and a fairly select number of cars that I know was in the roster or would be appropriate to run on that layout. And then I'm looking for maybe a couple dozen kits that approximate a photo I have. So that's pretty limited. And then you've got so many of the scenery. My last point on this is so many of the scenery materials we use today. Back then we were using ground foam, and still people use it today. But I don't care for it. But people still use it today. You had to buy all that stuff as Woodland Scenic sold. A lot of us model out of the craft stores these days because so much of the scenery materials we use are either natural products or otherwise not specifically dedicated for model railroading. I'm not.
I got into the hobby back in. Well, I think my first Walters catalog was back in mid-70s, and it was all maybe 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch thick.
Oh yeah.
And you only had, as far as cars and locomotives, you had Athern, Roundhouse, Bachman, Tyco.
Yeah, MDC, Bowser.
Bowser was
Bowser was building locomotive kits.
Right.
But now you've got Ready to Run, and when a company releases a Ready to Run center flow, they'll release it in 12 paint schemes and 4 versions, and so it's specific.
Oh yeah.
People are building smaller railroads too. Shelf railroads, that was not a thing back then. I mean, at the time, you either had a basement buster or you had a table. That's when I was, years ago. And nowadays, people are building shelf layouts that are dedicated to switching, and they care a lot more about the specific details.
Well, even back then, it was kind of like, the detail stuff. There was hardly anything. In fact, I think if you look for a lot of buildings, your craftsman kits, I guess, would be considered. Well, you had fine scale miniatures. I think they started way back then. But the other ones that were kind of starter craftsman kits were Campbell scale models.
Oh yeah, that's a great.
Now, I can remember building a Soidum or whatever it is, metal Celestri window. It was a building. It was all made out of metal. It had to be all soldered together.
Yep.
It was not. There was nothing really specific. Figurines were few and far between. Most of your buildings, actually, if you had to look at it, you wanted to buy buildings. A lot of them were of European architecture. So you had such ones as like Helgen, Baller,
Balmer.
Yep. There were a few of them, but that's where a lot of your plastic buildings were coming from. Was from Europe.
Yep.
Walters hadn't gotten into building buildings yet or anything like that. You had Atlas, and Atlas, I think they had like that train station and the lumberyard kit.
And the signal tower.
And the signal tower, yes. That was about the extent of what you had back then.
Yep.
Then you had, DPM. There were some DPM kits out back then.
I think. Okay, so
I don't know if you had DPM back then.
If you're going back to that time, the one that would be comparable to DPM would be Magnuson. Magnuson was around, but they were resin kits.
We still got one down there, and it's
good kits.
I think it's a transfer facility, truck rail transfer facility, and it's a resin kit.
They're great kits. I think resin holds detail better. I think resin brick looks a whole lot better than styrene brick, and you can still get those off of eBay. They're still good kits if you're willing to work with the fact that they warp.
Yeah.
You can put some wood in there, some styrene in there, something to straighten them up. They're great kits.
Yeah, we didn't have a heck of a lot back then.
Well, it used to. When I worked at the hobby shop, my teenage years in the late 80s, early 90s, everything that was available in the hobby, just about entirely, was in the Walters catalog. It was reasonable, maybe a half-inch thick, but if it was in the hobby, Walters had it. This day and age, you've got so many of these companies that are some guy who has bought a laser cutter or a 3D printer or started molding his own stuff, making molds. Anybody that can savvy at something, can create a small business around the hobby. Nobody's getting rich off of it, but it'll help fund your hobby, self-support itself. So,
I got Michael here. He was asking what people thought about ordering on eBay. He's a little skeptical.
you gotta have eBay.
A lot of them said just make sure the seller's got a high rating on it. Yeah, I've shopped eBay a couple of times, and so far I've been lucky. It's been good stuff. And
ask questions about it before you buy it. Make sure you're getting what you're looking for.
But you're protected. You're going through PayPal. If there's some kind of scam to it, PayPal will put the money right back in your account and straighten it up for you. You're safe on eBay, pretty safe on eBay, and I mean, you can get scammed anywhere. And this day and age, eBay is still a very relevant place. I still do the vast amount of my shopping on eBay, probably. It's the single biggest place I buy from, is eBay.
That's provided you use PayPal. Not everybody uses PayPal.
Yeah, that might be true, but I would not buy on eBay outside of PayPal personally.
In fact, it was funny when you think about it, with eBay and PayPal and everything else. Of course, way back then, you had... I'm trying to think, who was it? Standard Hobbies for Men. Well, you can get a discount if you bought through them, but send your check off and won't allow 6 to 8 weeks for delivery.
Right.
You get a discount, but I guess if you're not in a big hurry and it finally shows up, and goes, oh, did I order that? Oh yeah, I guess I did.
But now you can purchase it on eBay. You can get a couple of days. Most of the stuff on there, buy it now, grass or exotic. You just buy it now on eBay. You'll have it 3 to 5 days for most things. It's quick. And Amazon, honestly, has a bit of mono stuff. If it's generic, if it's scenery supplies and not, specific high-quality rolling stock and such, Amazon is, if I buy glues or paints, if I want to order a bottle of Tamiya paint, I'm going to pop on Amazon, order it by Prime. It'll be here tomorrow if I pay the $2. The next day if I appreciate it. So,
do not order standard shipping Prime with glues or acetic cement, anything like that, anything that can separate when frozen, because it will get frozen if you do standard shipping in the middle of winter.
That's good to know.
That's because they're flying it on freight planes and they're not conditioned cargoes.
Yeah.
Yep.
It gets cold the higher you go. What's that, Ralph?
It's going to sit out on the tarmac for a while before it's loaded or after it's taken off. It sits out in the cold.
Yep. Well, I think mine was all due to FedEx, but...
Hey, Joey, how you doing? He just popped in. Yeah, Eric said, not in Arizona. We have stuff melt out here.
Great. And
Okay,
you're
let's put it this way, do you live in any of these northern states?
or if they fly it though. I mean, even in Arizona, at 30,000 feet, 35,000 feet, it's cold. So
Yeah.
I've had that problem. I've had stuff flown that was definitely frozen. My grandmother sent me pounds of chocolate when I was in service, big old shoebox full of chocolate that was spectacular. And it was a little funny looking when I got it. It didn't hurt it any, but and it didn't stop anybody in my barracks from coming back a month after it had run out and still asked me if I had any of it left. But it freezes in flight, so that's a consideration. I have not had that problem. I've ordered acrylic paints that would be a concern for separation. Yeah, I haven't had a problem. I'm not ruling that out from being the case, but they ship. I ordered that stuff I used on the fine scale show recently to etch some copper with. That's a reasonably dangerous chemical. I've ordered hydrochloric acid. My business partner just bought a bunch of chlorine for his pool. That's that's stuff that you would want to be seemingly a bit concerned with, and it's fine.
That probably didn't flight. It probably didn't make flight though. That stuff probably was truck freighted.
Yeah, that stuff
Hey.
gets truck freighted because of the hazard.
Yeah, maybe. But I mean, I got that bottle. I mean, I got the bottle. You get it 2 days. So I mean, if it's generic stuff, electronic stuff, and that's back to this point of where hobby shops land these days. With so much of the hobby being where we're building stuff with Arduinos and servos, and there's fewer and fewer things that a hobby shop could do, and there's more and more stuff that people are specific about that need to go to a hobby shop for, that the inventory you would have to have. That's why it takes a shop like Caboose to carry the kind of inventory. And honestly, I would bet that their internet-based business is what makes their money for them. And the fact that they have a retail store is a tourist attraction, or for locals. But I bet the internet business is the big part.
Way back around 07, 08, right at the height of the recession, I was looking online and I kind of ran across the Hobby Manufacturers Association website. And apparently what they had done is they had done a survey, first one in decade or more. And one of the comments I remember when they were talking about the results of the survey was many of these brick and mortar hobby shops, when they finally go to an online presence, they are ill-equipped to handle the onslaught of business.
Right. Yeah. Or the technology required to do that proficiently. But yeah, that you're going to be busier on the internet. If anybody was going to open a hobby shop today, you do not need a storefront. That is of little to no value to do that. The only reason, even in my business, in the IT business, where we have a storefront, the only reason we have a quota, we don't have a storefront. The only reason we have a retail front-end door or an office space is so that we can all work collectively in a single place and be more productive. There is no reason otherwise. We have a 13,000 square foot facility, and we downsized and sublet part of that space. We just do not need the space, and it just doesn't need to be. I mean, in the age of internet, everything. I mean, the IT business where customer relationship is everything. I do 95% of my work from my office, or I could sit right here at my modeling table with an X-Acto in one hand and the mouse in the other, and could get paid. So
pajamas.
That's right. If something ever happened and I needed to change businesses again at this point in my life, I would work entirely off the internet. I would work.
It's nice when you're the boss.
Yeah, I know, Mike. I was out at the hobby shop last night, and asked Brian. I said, "Mike, come by the shop very much?" He said, "Not too much anymore." He said, he stays at home, keeping up with the online part of the store. It's starting to pick up. So,
if a man wanted to start a hobby shop, the way to do it is buy one of those buildings or do it out of your garage or basement. You could focus everything on the inventory, and you could focus your time. Because on the internet, somebody's going to go find what they want. Maybe they'll email you a question or chat you a question on your site. But the vast amount of time in a hobby shop is sitting around. And honestly, the hobby shop has ceased to become a valuable place for that. Every hobby shop I've been in since I've been back in the hobby in the last 4 years, there wasn't great conversations to be had in here or or listening to podcasts. Is where we get our information and where the conversations happen. Like what Lionel does with the virtual hobby shop. That's the perfect name for that concept. It is exactly what we used to get out of hobby shops. And the reason I think hobby shops were so relevant in their day, and I don't know what the guys who don't have hobby shops but also don't do this online stuff, what do they do for the knowledge sharing part that we used to get at the hobby shop? You know, you go ask the old guy that worked at the hobby shop, you know, how do I glue this together? You know, I just get on here and rattle you guys up about it, start a little fight with Ralph over how to do it, and ultimately we figure out that in a few minutes with a few other people chiming in and just trying to rile Ralph up at me and make him mad at me again, we figure out what are the best ways to do things. So, and you used to get that out of a hobby shop, but that's just not what's happening in hobby shops these days.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you one thing about the Trainmaster Hobby Shop. At least once a week or twice a week, you'll see a Norfolk Southern engine pull up right in front of the store, stop. The engineer gets out, comes in.
That is cool.
Because they got him on a stop signal right there, because that's the start of the siding going down to Chambly. And he has to wait because he runs the locals in the area right there.
Yeah.
The people will be pulling up and they hear a train coming. They'll run outside to watch it. Only to see him just come up and he stops short of the signal. And then he gets out, walks in, goes, "How y'all doing?" You know, he'll go in, look around the store, talk to Brian, hit the bathroom, come back out. You know, if there's any kids standing out there, of course, they ask him questions. He'll answer the questions for them.
So it's
they
like
get
he's
a
got
green.
His own parking space?
Huh?
It's like he's got his own parking space?
Yeah. He don't have to worry about nobody getting it.
The railroad, the prototype, kind of frowns on modelers in the industry. Guys working for the railroad that are modelers.
Yep. Rail fans.
That's right. I've heard that to be true these days from guys on YouTube that are modelers and prototype operators. Not operators, prototype professionally. And then a few months I worked at Norfolk Southern, that wasn't very well respected at all. I can kind of understand why now. I thought it was really weird then, but I can kind of understand now.
Yeah,
Really?
they may not even know that he does modeling.
Explain
Yeah.
it to
Yeah, you've got to keep it a secret.
Yeah, he probably
Explain
tells
to me why they
tells
found
his brakeman that he's, hey, while I'm stopped here, I'm running in the bathroom. What was
So-
that, Ralph?
Explain to me, Andy, why they frown on it.
Okay, and I have to make some guesses about why they frown on it. But a couple things.
Well, you
What
just
is-
said you understand it.
I do understand it from a business proprietorship. It's an added risk. Now, there's a couple reasons that it could be one of a couple of these, or in truth, it's some variety of these. If you've got a prototype guy who is both a rail fan in his casual time, he could get into some kind of condition with the railroad out doing something he shouldn't be doing to get a photo. That's maybe, but that's less likely because they normally know what to do. Working for the railroad taught me a lot about what I should do when I'm out taking photos correctly. I don't do that, but if I were to anymore, but they would be less likely to report, a fellow rail fan or somebody out there doing something they shouldn't be doing. They're going to be less likely to report those people. More encouraged to share information with people and talk about things, and that's not always in their best interest from a news and publicity standpoint. Like there's a guy on YouTube that's a prototype modeler, and he was talking about how many CSX employees were furloughed at a specific time, and that starts up a big conversation potentially amongst guys in the hobby that care about the success of these companies casually, and I could see the potential for bad press out of there where CSX could be doing that and probably just do that silently without any big community backing it. That's the worst thing possible if you're in any industry that has a social relevancy to it. Like the manufacturers of the IT space, they have to be ever diligent with their tenuous relationship with the social media influencers in the space. I mean, if you're selling iPhones, if you're Apple selling iPhones, you have to have a very tenuous relationship with the influencers on YouTube who produce YouTube videos talking about your product, because they can either sell a lot of your devices or hurt the sale of your devices. So that's a reality of the professional railroader space. Hurt your company's image or create bad press. It's just, I don't think that it's unlikely for that to be the case. And I would argue to those corporations, CSX and NS, to the railroads, that they get a massive benefit out of somebody who, your better chance of hiring someone and then being a lifer for your company is to hire a rail fan or a modeler. They want to work for the railroad.
Times is whether or not a lot of railroaders actually look and say, it's just my effing job.
Right, I've heard that too. Yep, heard that plenty too.
I would have to say the rail fan, modeler, prototype, or professional railroader, they're probably, if you look at the overall industry, it's probably a very small percentage.
Oh yeah, surely.
Also, they also frown at people taking, like a crew was not paying attention to their train and wanting to take a picture of a certain engine and getting hurt, and that's also another reason they could.
Right, I meant to mention that one as well. And then you not only have that issue, but what if they are completely paying attention to doing everything right? That when they take a photo, publish it online, somebody sees online that something that the railroad has in place is not meeting the DOT spec or something. So, and they have the prototype guys have access to areas that not always the public taking photos may have access to, and where the railroad may think, I can get away with that.
I can tell you back in the 70s to mid-80s, I used to get on the trains and get to ride up in the engine, ride in the caboose, hitting a lot of the towers and everything else.
That's how I got to work for NS, because I buddied up with those guys. There were modelers there. They came to the hobby shop, and when I was getting ready to enlist, I was talking about whether I was going to, and about the scholarship for college. I was going to go to college and had a scholarship, and they were talking about, man, you ought to come work for the railroad, come work a couple of years, or come work your entire time while you're going to school, come work for the railroad. And they ultimately got me a job for a few months, and then I still enlisted in service, but I could have stayed right there. Good job.
And we're talking a lot about Class 1, even the regional railroads don't like you, but some of the little short lines, they're not. I know one short line around here that has a couple dozen rail fans under their employees, owners, rail fans that work there.
Is that the Grafton and Upton?
Nope.
Okay, Grafton and Upton. I've heard them, talk about that numerous times. They were guys who liked the railroad and had made decent amount of money in business otherwise. And when a short line went up for sale, they said, this is a good railroad. There's no reason it can't be successful serving this, short, however many miles of track. And they put it in operation, and they're growing. So it's a tenuous situation, but big corporations like the size of Class 4 specifically are risk-adverse companies. And it is just the potential for risk. And then for a lot of these executives that know nothing about our community, rail fan community, or the somewhat segmented modeling community, they don't necessarily understand it. And they would see that as a risk. I think there's a benefit as well, and that's kind of one of these weighed out things, and they just decide it's not worth the risk.
All right, I got two things here. One, Kind of goes along what y'all talking about. Eric there goes, nobody cared what I did when I wore a bunny suit into a clean room. Yeah, I don't think I want to see Eric in a bunny suit. But anyway, anybody heard any more about, I'd heard that some company had bought out Grant Line and maybe one or two other places. Anybody heard anything new about that?
Yes, sir. That's really looking awesome. Sandwad, who's made rolling stock in the OM3 and I think largely in the SM3 market and made narrow gauge couplers for years, is going to keep Grant Line alive. We thought they were going to die, and they actually brought a couple companies under. They were like Sandwad Models before. Now they're or Sandwad something, and now they're Sandwad Models company. They're building out a new web front end that references like 5 or 6 of these companies that they've collected under this one roof, and I think there's a good future. I think there's a good future for Grant Line's products. That's spectacular news. I wish whatever is happening with Monster Model Works would sort itself out, because I really should have ordered some stuff, but had I known that was going to come up instead of them just shutting down. At least with Grant, he set that up and said, "Hey, I'm going to shut down in 3 months. You guys put your orders in," so people could buy, which is kind of a good sales pitch in a certain way too. It's kind of like like all the hardware stores been going out of business for 20 years, at least according to the front windows. I'm sure a lot of people bought inventory, but it worked out. That company's going to stay alive. That's another one we lost recently was Vector Cut. That was a great one. I wish somebody would have bought that up.
You never know. Wasn't Atlas or somebody was just like buying companies up like everywhere at one point?
Yeah, they got BLMA and several during that time period that they bought BLMA. What's a company? Atlas is a good sized company. Same thing has happened with Ather too. Ather is now a part of Horizon. Horizon, who does a lot of RC stuff, and others was buying up companies like that. Once you get to a certain size, it's very, very difficult to grow in a traditional way. You have to acquire to grow. In some cases, these companies act to hire, or they acquire for the purpose of hiring the talented staff, because it's hard to find people who are talented model makers and mold makers. Guys that have the skills like what Miles has, for example, that he can do those things in a professional modeling capacity. Those guys are rare. So you are either going to steal those guys away by offering them more money, or acquire the companies to acquire the talent, plus the molds, plus the customers, the name. But these companies stay alive that way. And at some of these sizes, if you don't get big enough, like this thing that happened in China recently with these companies that were impacted by that. If a company is not of a certain size, they can't protect themselves from that. Companies like the size of Tangent would have had a hard time protecting themselves from that. Atlas is big enough that they probably should have been able to be protected, I think. That's my only condemnation about that. But so companies have to get big, or you can't be safe. And whoever said that about the bunny suit ought to be shot. That's a bad mental image I haven't let go of yet.
You're muted, Ralph.
Lionel Trains has bought up all of Model Power molds. They want to get back into HO again.
Yeah, I heard that too. That hasn't worked for them so far. This will be their 3rd try. But it's a different market today. It's possible. That could prove to be interesting. I'll yield my opinion for a moment on that. We'll see what happens.
Another reason why the Class 1s and some other railroads don't want rail fans and stuff working for them is theft.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's a good point. there's so many reasons actually. That's
Yeah.
potentially.
Yeah, because rail fans are always looking for souvenirs.
Well, yeah, I'd love to have a position light signal. Love to have. I will not pay the $1,800 I've seen online for them, but I'd sure like to have one.
Oh, yeah, this is back up in the chat a little ways. New Haven Rails is going to be giving clinics. I think he said up there at the Fine Scale Expo.
Awesome. What you doing clinics on?
I'm not exactly sure what it was he said.
Okay.
Still a year away. I'm assuming he said it's in Albany.
Yep.
That'll
I'm
probably
not
be New
ruling out
York.
going up to that one.
Huh?
I'm not ruling out going up to that one because there's not going to be a lot next year in the way of shows. I'm working on one or two, and I'd like to figure that out. I think I went to 3 or 4 over the last couple of years. I know I'm going to St. Louis again next year for sure. I missed it this year because the NMRA was coming right after it, but I'm still looking at what shows I may try to do. I want to do something. You guys want to give me an opinion on something?
Is that Andy?
You guys want to give me an opinion on something? Take a look at something I'm questioning?
Oh, I was trying to catch up on chat. I wasn't paying attention to what you were saying.
Well, I kind of mocked up something the other day or I think actually yesterday, that feels a bit like a novel to me, so I'm not sure I want to do it. But, so, this section of the railroad is the peninsula. It's viewed from over here on this far side and that highway over there. And I've just got it down where I can work on it right now, and I'm getting ready to hang it up. I've got some poster board up so I can lock the backdrop up. Because this is a fairly narrow state that you look back 7 feet into. When you're looking at this thing, you only see this little bit of this little hillside. There's a track coming through here that gives you a chance to stand there, and your last opportunity to watch your train going up the grade with a helper from a distance, and then you walk around the far side of the peninsula. As you do that, the train's going into the helix. It goes up the top. There we are. As the train goes around, it goes up the helix and it comes out up top, up on this beam at 74 inches or so, way up high. Well, I have a place here on the back side of this. While you're standing here waiting for your train to come out, coming across the top of the peninsula, way up high as it goes up the helix, there's a last opportunity where you can see this train through a little window that I cut out in this little mock-up. It'd be a little 6-inch by 6-inch hole. It feels a bit like a novelty, but it gives a kind of unique view going across the railroad this way, and an opportunity to kind of see that tunnel that you pretty much couldn't otherwise see. It's a little window into the layout that's kind of out of correct alignment. You're looking at it from the wrong side of the track. It's not directionally pure exactly, but it's a bit of a novelty, and not a proper, correct, sincere design. But it is kind of it is maybe something neat, and but it's a little hole through the scenery. I wonder if that would just feel stupid or kind of an afterthought, and you can't see that hole on the other side. The backdrop goes around like this, and that hole's here, and the aisle's over here, and this right here blocks that. So it's a person can stand there and look through that hole, and a person can sit through the aisle, and you still couldn't see each other, even though you're looking across the same thing. I do that in at least 2 places on my layout, where you can see the scene from 2 places, can't see the other person at the same time.
Hey Tim, I had to mute you. You're getting a little feedback. If you want to mute yourself. Oh, okay, so you did.
But if anybody has any opinion on whether that'd be kind of novelty.
No, it looked all right to me.
You're trying to get me going, I know.
There's a hole through the backdrop like that, so it feels a little stupid to me, but in some ways, but it's also a view you can't get any other way, from an entirely different angle, of scenes that have a lot of detail, or sub-detail, at sides of structures that cannot be seen from the layout in any way you get to them. There's no way to see anything approximating that scene. It's an entirely different viewing angle that's 7 feet away from you can only view that area from the aisle, and you're looking back 7 foot 6 inches, 7 foot 8 inches to the back edge. That track at the back edge, or when it hits the backdrop, is 7 foot 6 inches away from that aisle. It's a 7 foot deep scene. So I was already going to do something. I already have an arrangement for a place that's hidden, so I can get in there and clean the track, or maintain the scenery, or clean it. But while I was kind of thinking about how that popped up, I was like, well, a person could take this little backdrop out, or put a little slider on it, like a illegal gambling place, a little slider on a door or something like that. So I figured I'd mock it up and see if it was possible to see it. It's not. You wouldn't see it from the other side. Your backdrop picture would be pure.
Hey, Ralph.
Yeah.
Don't worry. Once he gets it all up and going, I'll call Angie, get her to put the sock over the camera so he won't see me. I'll sneak in, and I'm going to write peephole over the top of it.
It is a peephole. Yeah. Actually, I may even just put a label over it, peephole or something.
All right, touch of the brush small weathering, Joey. He wants to know, Andy, what is the top 4-inch shelf being held by?
It's magic.
Over the peninsula is all hanging from altar, and hanging from the ceiling. So at the moment, I've got these modules down about, they're about 16, 18 inches lower than where they belong, so that I can get to them and finish up all the scenery on them. But I'm getting ready to pour the resin for the river. And I got to do all that while it's low, and then it's going up. I've got my extra aluminum stock and stuff to hang it. When it's complete, when that gets complete, the layouts on the walls, shelf brackets around the outside, this intersection is entirely held up. And up until if I ever do build the lower couple decks that I planned, because I planned for a 4.5 deck layout, but if I never build more than the top 2, this layout's at 50 inches. I can nod my head and walk anywhere in this room. The entire floor would be clear. In my case, I'm making this work as a crew lounge, and the area under the peninsula now has a couch in it, and I got a little table where I've been sitting at the couch and working, and I'm going to put a TV across, over there, so I can just sit down on the couch, start making trees, pull you guys up on that TV.
I mean, this is kind of watching Andy and Ralph down there, and saying like Ralph is waiting for the right date to go and get his 2 cents worth in.
What you'd think with the way this layout is designed, it would feel constrained, because the aisles are 2 feet wide. I've got wider spots in the corners where people can pass, but it is a narrow layout. It is not human friendly. It is tight. It is tall. You're looking up a lot. It's tough. But because of its height where it is, I think 3 to 4 operators will be able to move about in here, or cold meeting while they're waiting on their trade, and it'd be entirely comfortable. I've got the area under the helix roughly 8 by 8. It's completely open free space. So,
you're gonna have to provide step ladders for those people who are visually challenged with bifocals. I mean, yeah, looking down is one thing, but in your case, you got to look up, which is looking through the long distance part of the bifocal. So you're going to have to give them a step ladder so they can look back down again.
True. Now, on the top deck, there's only 2 spots where you need 3 spots where you need to interact with the train. One of those spots is on the elevated floor in front of the tail. So in that case, and all you've got to do is just reach up and hold the magnet over it. That's another reason why surgent couplers work so good for me. With KDs, you use a skewer as a pick, and you need to get your alignment right. It is much easier to uncouple, and the reason that people recommend the layout height closer to 50 inches, somewhere about armpit level, they say, as a maximum height, is so that you can look down enough to align your pick with the KD. With mine, all I got to do is from the side slip the little magnet in between the cars. Couplers are open, so I can pick real easily, even up high. There's 3 spots. There's at the very end of the line, right before it goes through the wall. There is where you have to detach the helper, and I may even be able to do that where I don't latch the coupler, and that way you can even drop the helper at speed. The helper just drifts back down great. But I'm going to put a pull-out drawer there. I'm going to build a drawer where you slide the drawer out, and the drawer has two steps to step you up to that point, so you can get up there if you needed to. There's also a single siding that's occasionally a car is dropped at, although that can be skipped. And then whole facility. I mean, there's one other spot, and for that I'll just throw a step ladder out. Again, there's not much switching on the top level. It's pretty. It's open running, and it's where the pushers are screaming.
I'm done.
All right, Andy. You kind of started something on the chat here.
I wanted some opinion about that.
Oh, you got an opinion, all right. Container Man says Andy is not big guy friendly.
Well,
Eric goes, chubby guys like me would clog up your aisles like a toilet.
I'm not sure that's true.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, my layout is literally at eye level. So the 2-foot aisle space, the 2-foot width I have of aisle space is what your head needs to fit in. So unless your head gets big, and my wife is concerned that mine might sometime, but unless your head gets that big, you're pretty safe. All the bottom part of your body has 4 or 5 feet to work in because underside of the layout is open, and this is the lowest spot of the layout. So yes, at this spot my shoulder doesn't go under it, but it almost does. And by the time you get around there, my shoulder goes under it. So unless you're Shaquille O'Neal, it would be a problem. It's probably a bigger problem in some degrees for taller people because of the duck under, but that duck under is at 58 inches. So, but I also have an area where the 70-inch, the 6-foot shelf extends out over the layout because I'm elevationally challenged at 5'6", 5'7", so 5'6.743. But at that elevation, and then there's an elevated platform, and then if you need to get up to that track, you need to climb a couple steps to get up there. But you could operate this layout and never climb a step ladder if that was a problem. There's no reason why, I'm not a skinny guy these days either. So, most of us, there's plenty of us modelers that are a little over plate C regulations. So that's fine. I think it's fine because of the height. If my layout was at 40 inches, that'd be an entirely different consideration. Another benefit to a tall layout, in my opinion.
Hey, Ralph.
Yo.
Greg G. Say it, Ralph. I can see you want to.
He's still waiting for the right bait.
No, I'm biting my tongue tonight.
I set him up a couple times on those, but I think
he just keeps on dangling in front of him, and he just keeps on ignoring it.
I want the opinion. I've got several. My whole layout is controversial to me, in what I thought about. That people picked on me for the longest time over my tripods and sawhorses, but I had the hardest time committing to putting my layout at literal eye level. That was a very hard fought decision. I kicked it around for a year, and I changed the elevations numerous times when it was just 2 or 3 modules before it was like 11 or 12 that it is now. I kicked that around for a long time before I decided to go for it and permanently mount it at eye level. But I'm in love with it. I will never build a layout. I don't think I will ever build a layout again unless I have some handicap that requires me to modify this consideration, or unless I start shrinking.
Well, here we go. Here we go. Joey said there's a width limit instead of a weight limit.
Well, maybe, but it would still be a pretty wide. It would be a shoulder width. It'd be if you were tall and wide shouldered. That would be a problem. Shaquille O'Neal would be uncomfortable here. There's no question about that. But
no, he just have to turn sideways and walk like a crab.
That's true too. And there's wide spots at each of the quarters of the layout, and there's 3 of those quarters in this small room. There's 3 meeting points. That's why I'm convinced that, and I designed the layout so that when you are at an interesting spot, when you're standing in front of the bridge here, where you see your train for the first time of the westbound movements, when you see your train come out of staging right there for the first time, you'll be standing here. There's nothing interesting scenically above you. Above my workbench here is those 2 big, high steel trestles. There's nothing on the layout here that's interesting, so I have designed spots where people will naturally stand to make for some period of time before they move to another spot. And I've obstructed the view. Like, that's fascia coming way up high. And I've got trees in front of you and buildings in front of you. I obstruct your view a lot so that it forces you to view the layout from certain angles, which controls what I can do to make it look certain ways. Allows me to pack a lot of railroad. This is a 15 by 15 foot road that will have just shy of 400 foot of running main line of one railroad and another 80 feet of 60 feet of a second railroad that's fully operational with staging on all 4 ends of those railroads. So that's a lot of railroad for a 15 by 15 road. That's not even counting that there's 4 branch lines, 4 or 5 branch lines. All 4 or 5 of those, I think 4, are modeled with staging, or at least a track. In a couple cases, there's only 1 track that goes off into staging. Loop-to-loop and continuous running for 2 separate railroads in a 15 by 15 route. So I am just about always to give up, in some ways, a little bit of just super convenient, super comfort in favor of just a lot more railroad in here. And I also want you to feel contained by it. I want you to feel like you're along the river at the bottom of a valley that you're looking way up. I want that elevational challenge. I want you to feel like you're in that valley. And I want you to feel isolated. And this is a small room, so making you feel isolated here when you're only 2 feet, 3 feet away from the guy at that peninsula, but it's a 20-foot walk, 30-foot walk to get back around there. I want you to feel separate from each other. Even if you could just sweep the curtains under, smack him in the leg or something underneath the layout. It's really tight. You want to railroad in a small spot.
Andy's railroad is not friendly for claustrophobic people.
I will grant you that it's constrained. Yep. I didn't have a bigger spot. Now, I will grow, when I grow the layout or put it in another, if I built a building, I would open it up a little bit in some areas, but I would still have some 2-foot aisles, probably the quantity of them. And in a few key areas, I would open up to 3 foot for a little while, so there's, some room at a certain spot where multiple trains interact with each other. But I don't know how else you get that much railroad in a space without making concessions. With part of the layout not being at 7 feet off the ground, all the way down to 3 foot off the ground. And you feel like you've done something. You know, when you operate over the layout and you move a 20-pound train, you know, 30 cars, 25, 26, 28 cars, it's about 30 pounds of freight because they're so heavy. When you move that over the layout with a pusher, and you move 400 foot, and it takes you an hour to do that, and you travel from about 40 inches, 36 inches off the floor, all the way up to 76, 77 inches off the floor over that hour, you've done some work. You know, you get the sense that you've traveled some distance, and that you've moved tonnage. Because it's hard to move. You know, they're heavy, and you got to do it right to get it up the grade. The grades are steep, so.
Well, we done hit the hour 12 mark. So, anybody want to make any closing comments?
One more shot. Let's see if I can get Ralph riled up yet. Hey, let me think of something.
Just be safe around railroad tracks, and yeah,
have fun.
Yeah, don't sit in front of the train trying to take pictures. You might get run over.
Glenn asked Andy, would you enjoy operating on someone's layout that is waist high?
I mean, yeah, it depends. I definitely subscribe to this thing that Joe Fugit talks about when he talks about quality of run versus quantity of run. The key to whether you enjoy a layout is interesting. Is it not grab? Is it an interesting operation? Is it highly reliable? If trains are derailing and uncoupling, that is no fun whatsoever. If more than a derail, if you have a 4-hour operating session and you have more than 1, possibly 2 derails, that's going to be a problem for operators. They're not going to like that. It should not derail. And with the quality of products we have these days, it doesn't need to derail. And if you're having derailing problems, throw the weight to it. You know, you won't have a problem. But if it's interesting, but not Disney World, you know, not crazy fantasy, if it's realistic, if I feel like there's some challenge to it, I could get past any of the other constraints. The size, the level of how much scenery is finished, and the height. I absolutely favor a railroad that is at least 48 to 50 high. Everything below 48 to 50 high, I'm not going to do. The bottom level of my layout is at the 40-inch mark or so that I'm putting that is tailored for a seated operator at a couple spots because it's a yard at a mine facility where you can sit down and for a minute at the end of your run and drop empties or drop loads and pick up your outgoing train. So you could, but it's how well. The key is the execution on other things, the quality that it operates at, and how enjoyable the operations are, and if they're challenging enough without feeling stupid. You know, it doesn't need to feel. You know, it doesn't need to be. You know, it doesn't need to be rocket science. But if all you do is watch the light go green and go, if it's a racetrack with a little trick thing, that's going to get boring for a lot of people.
Tim, can you mute?
Oh.
Yeah.
So the key to a good operating session is the correct balance of challenge, because a game that has no challenge you won't play. It needs a little bit of challenge.
Yeah. Alrighty. I think we're going to wind this one up.
Yep.
Before we get too deep. I want to say thank you to everybody that came in on the chat tonight, and hope Eric's enjoying his donuts with the kids. So, y'all have a good weekend. Start a new month next week. Let's see what
Wait a second, John.
What we got here.
Wait a second, Johnny.
I did not understand what you said there, Josh.
Just wait a second, right quick.
not work. Can't do that, Josh.
Yay.
You're going to get us in trouble with YouTube. You ready?
Europe's not going to like it.
It's all right. very, very short period of time. It's very short as protected.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right,
But
October the 9th, we got the fine scale coming up Tuesday night. Then the following week, on October 17th, we've got Joe's Train Room. That's on a Wednesday night. As everybody knows, all the shows are at 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock Eastern time. Big Bill is in negotiations with Barry and Mike because they've taken over the shows, the clinics at Amherst this year. It's their first year, and they're getting set up for that. So they asked Bill if they come on and talk a little bit about that. So Bill told them, yeah. So we're setting up a date for that. Got two other fellas that are in negotiations with each other. They said they wanted to do a show next month in October. We don't know exactly what they're going to do yet. It's kind of scary knowing these two. But anyway, it ought to be a good show to start out with it. So, anyhow, have a good weekend. Be safe, and we shall see you on next week on Thursday. All right, have a good one.